back into your practice, which has already officially begun just by simply arriving. Tonight, we're going to talk about using the yin yoga practice as a support mechanism for sleep and quality of sleep. Sleep is one of those things that can be really difficult for some of us to access. And so we're going to talk about, in particular, 3 different shapes that can really help to not only calm the body physiologically, but in particular really calm the nervous system, which is usually the thing that really gets in the way of us being able to access a good night's rest. And as we move into the practice, I'm going to bring in this really short quote from, this is a book called Sabbath, called Finding Rest, Renewal, and Delight in Our Busy Lives. And this really short passage really struck me as a great starting point to talk about rest and sleep and using yin yoga. And it says this. It says, the story is told of a South American tribe that went on a long march day after day, when all of a sudden they would stop walking, sit down to take a rest, and then make camp for a couple of days before going any further. When asked why they stopped, they said that they needed the time to rest so that their souls could catch up with them. This idea of, the body may be in one place and the mind may be one place, but that the soul sometimes takes time to kind of catch up and really be given permission to rest. And sometimes even when we sleep, we wake up and we're fatigued, and it's because there wasn't that kind of like soul level rest taking place. And that usually is because there's a sense of stress and anxiety that's still active even when we put the body to sleep. So we're really going to try to calm the body down tonight using 3 different yin yoga shapes so that we can really access that good quality sleep and rest and let our souls catch up a little bit. The first shape that we're going to do tonight is called caterpillar pose. And caterpillar pose, I'm going to show 2 different main ways you can do this. If you have really tight hamstrings, for instance, you can take your pillow or your bolster and put it underneath the knees so that the legs stay bent the whole time, because this is really about accessing the parasympathetic nervous system and letting the spine really round. Now, if you're wanting to get a little bit of a stretch in the hamstrings, so you're not wanting quite as much support, then you might use a block instead and have the legs probably about hip distance apart. So there's a little bit of space, and I'll put the block at whatever height I need, kind of in between the legs, and then let the head settle down. So kind of deciding, if you have the legs more straight, you'll feel it a bit more in the low back, as well as the hamstrings. If you're looking for something a little bit more restorative, then maybe it feels better to have that bolster underneath the knees. And as we settle in here, there's a really natural opportunity to notice the relationship between the body and the breath. Because as the body breathes here, we feel the belly expanding and contracting up against the thighs. And so as you inhale, you might actually get a sense of the pose becoming a little bit tight. The sense of the body and the breath pushing up against its edges. And then as you exhale, this sense of softening that washes over the body as we sort of fold back into ourselves.
This particular shape is very embryonic. There's a cellular imprint of the body being folded over itself that dates back to our bodies actually being formed in our mother's wombs. And so really allow yourself to turn inward here. Really pivoting away from the activity of the day and turning inward to that place of peace and quiet that is always within us, but we often ignore or don't make time for. We'll be taking about 7 more complete rounds of breath here. And so you might just want to scan the body and ask yourself, is there anything that you could soften the resistance to? Any tension that might be ready to be released? Never forcing, just inviting the tension to go if it's ready to go. Yourself one more breath as you are, and then begin to lift the head first. The rest of the spine will follow. Once you get upright, actually bring the hands behind you, just lean into the arms and just take a few breaths there, just letting the sort of reverberations of the posture move through the body. Close the eyes, you can open it. We're going to move into the second shape, which is one of my favorites. It's called legs up the wall. If you take this, if you see the shape in a more hatha or vinyasa practice, you might hear it called the Sanskrit term Viparita Karani, which also is just the Sanskrit for legs up the wall. Same thing. So what I would suggest is you don't have to do it at a wall. You can also do it up against the back of a bed or a couch. Works just fine with the legs kind of in a waterfall position. But you'll drop whatever more dominant shoulder feels onto the ground and then roll the body onto the back to extend the legs up the surface that you're working with. And then as you get here, finding a placement for the arms that really makes sense. So sometimes I really like having my hands on the belly, just a reminder of being in relationship with the body. Sometimes I want my arms a little bit wide, really kind of bringing in that space across the upper chest. But oftentimes when I'm struggling with sleep, I'll actually bring the arms overhead, which what this does is it opens up the lung capacity just a bit more. And the primary tool that we have for calming the nervous system is the breath. And so the wider I can make that highway for the breath, the better. So when we are very busy in a slightly heightened state of nervous system arousal, the breath tends to get concentrated and even trapped in the upper third of the torso and the chest. When we get really overstimulated, that can look like hyperventilation. And so one of the simplest and most impactful tools is to access the exhale, the down breath. Really liberating the belly to move. Even if you're just aware of your belly moving, that's a wonderful sign of really nourishing your parasympathetic nervous system. We'll be spending about 3 more minutes in this legs up the wall shape. Pretty luxurious amount of time. You might even envision your legs as a waterfall. Feeling a cascade of energy flowing from the soles of your feet down the length of your legs and landing right at the base of the belly where the exhale completes itself. And then the river of breath continues from that churning place of the belly where the waterfall has deposited that energy and that breath. And the river takes that breath and brings it up the spine on an inhale. And then turns around, depositing it back at the heart of the belly on the exhale. Giving yourself about 30 more seconds here. Letting the breath inhabit that deep belly space. Begin to shift into a supportive wall twist. So your upper body's not going to have to move really at all. If you twist and you feel a little bit too claustrophobic, there's not enough space for the body, you can always move slightly away from the wall by moving the pelvis away a few inches. But we'll start by softening the knees and letting the feet slide down the surface of the wall so you're in a sort of ball. And then with the feet sort of tracing the wall, you'll let the legs sweep over to the right. It's almost like you're creating a semicircle as you come into a spinal twist. So the soles of my feet are actually still on the very baseboards of the wall. And then I like to extend my arms wide in a T position here. And sometimes, particularly if my neck is a little aggravated, it's already enough to just look straight up to the ceiling. Other times it feels available to turn my head towards that left arm. And then one final exploratory option here is to rotate the left palm so it's on the floor and slide it up a couple of inches, which can introduce a little pull through that inner arm and armpit area. Now, if that distracts you from your relaxation, you just leave that alone. No need to do it. Always remembering to exercise your own agency and choice in the practice. Feeling this sensation of being supported not just on one surface by lying flat on the mat, but also still having that point of contact with the wall. So being supported from multiple surfaces simultaneously. About 3 more breaths as you are. And then as we prepare to come out, let the head come back to neutral first. And then you may even use the hand as a sort of guide to bring the knees back into center. And for about 5 breaths, just re-elongate the legs up the wall. Just to sort of rest in between sides. As you're ready, you can let the knees start to soften. Again, the feet sliding down the wall. And this time, moving in that semicircle, sliding over to the left. And taking the arms out wide, pausing for a few breaths. So I'm really noticing, you may be as well, this side feels very different than the other in my body today. So knowing I might have to make some different choices on this side of the body, and that's okay. That just means I'm really listening to what's here right now. And so really checking in, does the body want that added neck stretch, or is it good as it is? Is the body craving that addition of the inner pec stretch, or does it already have enough going on and it just wants to be present with what's already here? And seeing if there's anything that the body has been carrying today that it might be ready to release. Reminding yourself that there is never a sense of obligation in this practice. There's never forcefulness. Instead, it's just an ongoing invitation that when the body is ready to let go, ready to surrender, that we allow that to happen instead of resisting. And sometimes when we're having difficulty accessing sleep, it's because the mind is clinging to something. And sometimes the mind gets really attached to its thoughts, and we forget to even ask the question if it's ready to be let go of or not. So you might just check in. Is anything ready to go right now? Really honoring that transition out, taking your time, and one final time to extend the legs up the wall for about 5 breaths. And just noticing, how does that entire pelvic region feel against the floor? Maybe there's just a little bit more groundedness than when we first arrived. Just noticing that weighted quality. And so as we shift towards Shavasana, I'd like to extend an invitation to stay here for about 2 more minutes for our resting pose. Or if you prefer to move into a more traditional Shavasana shape, you could bend the knees and roll to one side, and then gently guide the body onto the spine. So really up to you what you prefer. I'm going to give you the gift of silence here for about 1.5 minutes, but recalling that idea from our native ancestors of pausing the body from time to time so that the soul can catch up. The entire practice of yoga is a practice of unification, of coming together in wholeness. And so as you rest in this silence, allow your body, your mind, and your soul to catch up to one another. you need more time in Shavasana, know that you're welcome to stay exactly as you are. If this is the time that you have, begin to welcome in deeper breath, subtle movements, and then in your own way and time, guiding your way back up to a seat to close the practice. As you come back to your seat, we'll just take 3 rounds of breath, really focusing on the exhale. You could have the hands on the thighs or on the belly, whatever feels more of service to you right now. Inhaling totally normally and exhaling in a relaxed and easeful way. When you get to the bottom of that exhale, see if there's just a little bit more air you could push out. And then repeat, inhaling naturally. Exhaling completely and easefully. And at the very bottom of the breath, just see, is there a little bit more air to push out? Last time, inhaling naturally. And exhaling easefully. Really checking that all the air gets out at the bottom. And then just returning to your totally normal, intuitive breath. To close the practice, you could place the hands somewhere on the body, a gesture of gratitude, or if it feels natural, to bring the palms of the hands together. I'll seal our practice this evening with 3 phrases from the Buddhist tradition. These are known as metta or loving kindness phrases. And I offer these to all beings in the world. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be peaceful and at ease.